Greetings, listeners. Howard and I spoke with a very special guest. She is the global managing partner of a Global 100 and UK 10 law firm. Today, we discuss how her global strategy for growth won her contested role. We discussed how the firm's clients drive their practices and impressive geographic reach. We also learned about how the firm carefully selects the right people to deliver on a consistent culture of collaboration and care globally. Enjoy. So, welcome everyone to the Future is Bright podcast. My name is Chris Batts and joined by my co host, Howard Rosenberg. Howard and I are at the epicenter of law firm talent and strategic growth here in New York City. Howard is a partner and the head of talent intelligence and acquisitions at Barretts and Brunel, and I advise and facilitate corporate law firm mergers at Columbus Street. And today, we have a very exciting guest, Laura Cameron, Global Managing Partner of Pinsent Masons. Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's lovely to see you and Howard. Thanks for having me.
Laura, so out of the gate, I didn't know a lot about your firm. I did some research and I'm pretty blown away. Such an incredible brand and geographic reach. And I'd love to just share a couple of things and please confirm with me I'm correct. So about 1,900 attorneys, so close to 2,000, but there's probably some give and take on that. A total of 3,500 or more people, talent, across 4 continents and 29 offices. Is that correct?
That's right, Chris. Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. That's a lot of geographic reach. How do you guys do it all?
It is. It's a fantastic firm that's built up over obviously a number of years. In fact, our origins go back to 1769, but I promise I won't take you that far back in time. But we are a product of a number of mergers and acquisitions, especially I would say over the past 10 to 15 years. We used to be very much in the UK, but as over the past 10 years in particular, we've expanded our presence in Asia. We used to just have Hong Kong and China. We're now in Australia and in Singapore. And we've also just recently opened a new office in Shenzhen in China, expanded into the Middle East, South Africa, and of course across continental Europe too. So yeah, it's fantastic coverage, I guess, and for our clients.
So you've been at the firm for 30 plus years, is that correct?
I have. Thanks for reminding me, Chris. Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time. Can't you tell?
Not at all. And I just would love to hear some of your roles and responsibilities and some of the journey of your career at the firm through all those mergers and where you are today. Can you shed a little bit of light about what's on your plate?
Sure. It's obviously been a long period of time, so I'll try to encapsulate it quickly. I joined the firm just shortly after my traineeship, my training contract, and to be honest, I joined the firm then just to get some wider experience. I qualified into litigation. I wanted to have some wider experience in the higher courts in the country, and this was a fantastic platform to allow me to do that. My intention had always been to return to a smaller firm, which is where I trained. But the truth of the matter is, I absolutely loved the firm. I loved the clients. I loved the quality of work. In litigation, we were doing groundbreaking cases. We had creating new authorities, and I loved, most important of all, the people I worked with. So I haven't really looked back on that. And in fact, even in those early days, I still am very close with the 4 colleagues that I grew up with, and we still meet for dinner now, even though 3 of them have now retired. But that's how close we were. So I trained in litigation, commercial litigator. Very quickly started to specialize in different areas in litigation. And after a few years, I managed to sort of become an associate, then senior associate. To be honest, I never looked beyond the next move. I always wondered, can I make senior associate? Oh, hey, I've made it. And then, started to look up again a bit from there. But I quickly became, after I became a partner, I think in 2004 in the firm, and then became team leader of the commercial litigation team quite quickly after that. Moved into a practice group head role, which I conducted for 7 years across our global litigation platform, and then became managing partner just over 2 years ago now. And that's a global managing partner role. It's a real privilege to have this position in the firm. It's a fantastic job. I love it. And I'm responsible, I guess, for delivering on this strategy in a nutshell.
So Laura, walk us through how did you were you tapped on the shoulder to think about applying for the role, or you were appointed, or how did that work out?
So we have an election process, Howard, in the firm. So and it's all set out very clearly in our members' agreement. The previous incumbent had come to the end of his second 4-year term, so we knew we were going to have a new managing partner. And I guess, I mean, I wasn't alone in this, but a few partners were starting to talk to each other and encouraging myself and other candidates to stand. So in the end, it was a contested election. We had hustings meetings and quite a few of them actually. I think probably about 16 hustings meetings in total over Teams and in person. And then there's an election process where the partners vote.
And what did you have a specific platform for going for the role, and obviously in a contest, on a contested election, there's other people. Did you have like a mandate or kind of a vision for growth that kind of you won at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had to prepare manifestos, um, and I felt that I was in a really sort of helpful position, having been a practice group head for a global group over 7 years. As much as I really respect and admire the previous incumbent, I could see areas where we could improve perhaps and do things a little bit differently. And I just felt at that point that we had this fantastic platform, but we were perhaps not achieving what we could from that platform. So I very much went in on the basis of growth, but also on the basis of expanding our leadership and profile from a geographic perspective. We were very sort of UK centric at that point in time. So one of the first things I did do was to go through a governance review and set up a new clients and markets committee to bring in laser light focus for our clients, but also to expand some of the leadership roles so that they involved and brought in more geographical leaders into the team, which has already made a massive difference in terms of having that perspective in our leadership teams.
So one of the central themes in our podcast that Chris and I have is on law firm growth, and because of you're kind of an anomaly, your firm. I mean, it's a 300-year-old plus firm, um, but there's really no representation in the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that maybe is?
So I think, again, historically, we focused on, at least initially, Asia for our growth. And I'm going back 40 years. We opened in Hong Kong 40 years ago and China. So a long time ago. But as you no doubt hear from other law firm leaders, our growth strategy has been driven by our clients. And we are very strong in infrastructure and energy sectors in particular. And actually, as our clients have expanded into new geographies and new markets, they've asked us to follow them. So that really has been the driver for our growth. And of course, in infrastructure, that has taken us to, well, Asia, Singapore, Africa, where there's a huge amount going on, the Middle East, of course, where we started in Dubai, very quickly opened in Qatar, and of course now we've just opened our first office in Saudi, in Riyadh, early this year. Again, and all of that has been driven by our clients, really. Likewise, in continental Europe, where we've got a strong tech play, also energy and I guess to some extent infrastructure too. We've started to develop so client led really, which is that's why we've grown in the way we have.
You- So, going back to strategy, Laura, you were put in the position to do strategy, but did you come into a situation where there was existing strategy and you're adding to it? It sounds like you're stepping into and expanding that strategy more. Um, is that correct? I guess that's a question that I'm asking.
Yeah, so just to be clear from a governance perspective, our board sets our strategy. I'm on the board, obviously.
Okay.
It's very much a board-led strategy, and so I contributed to that. But yeah, we had a clear strategy before, but we've developed that, enhanced it. I like to think from a board perspective, and now we're sort of doubling down on actually implementing it. So hence the Shenzhen, the Riyadh office openings. That's all part of the plan, really.
hmm Um, talk to me about what it is like to lead and manage a firm in so many different geographies and continents. I imagine there's some unique challenges.
Yeah, I mean, as you'll hear, no doubt, from every law firm leader, our culture is absolutely dear to us. So one of the big challenges is to make sure that we have the culture right across our firm and it's consistent. So our culture is very much about collaboration and supporting each other. So to ensure that we've got that, we do work very hard when we are recruiting or we're opening in new territories, taking on new teams, and even individual lateral hires. We do test these hires and these office openings very carefully to make sure we've got the right people joining us with the right mindset that will fit in well. That chemistry test is so important to us. And it doesn't just stop there, right? We've got to make sure that we work on it the whole time. We've just recently introduced a new partner charter, which sets out the behaviours that we're looking for from partners. But of course, actions speak louder than words. So we've got to make sure that's a living, breathing document, and people are adhering to that. Now, I have to say, I do think we're successful in that. I do hear from lateral hires who say to me when they've joined us, "Look, you told me in the recruitment process it was a collaborative firm." To be honest, I took that with a pinch of salt because, frankly, everyone says that. But actually, now I'm here, I'm really feeling that. So I take some comfort from that people do sense it, and we do feel like we're pulling together. And nothing gives me greater pleasure when I hear that I've had a multi-jurisdictional team on a particular mandate. It's just a thrill. I love to see that and hear about these kind of deals and transactions.
Sorry, Laura, if I just go back, I just like to, probably should have asked this question earlier, but why did you want to become a lawyer?
Do you know, Howard, I didn't actually, all through school, I wanted to be a dentist, is the truth. so, so I actually studied sciences and did all of that. And it got to the point when I was actually making applications to university. And I turned to my now late father and I said, "I don't think I can do this." And he said, "Yeah, I've been waiting 5 years for you to realise that because I'm really squeamish." And I know when we did dissections and things in biology, it really wasn't my thing. And so my dad had just been biding his time, waiting for me to come to the realisation myself. And he said, "What about the law?" And I said, "Yeah, that doesn't involve looking at horrible things. Yeah, I
There you
think I might
go.
quite like
There you
that."
go.
So yeah, so actually, and I haven't looked back. I've actually loved it. It's been great. I'm really pleased that I took that massive pivot towards the law.
Because the skill set to be an effective but kind of loved managing partner is variable, right? So it's just like to manage, as Chris says, a global organization across all the various jurisdictions. It's not an easy task. It's a full-time task, and it's more than that actually. How do you decompress to kind of be sane and still looking fabulous, kind of, as in your term as managing partner here?
Oh, so I'm really fortunate. I love hiking and walking, and I've got a great family. And so decompressing on a personal level normally involves climbing a hill somewhere. But from a work perspective, I along with others have worked really hard in terms of recruiting a fantastic leadership team. And actually, I count them as my friends as well as my colleagues, and we are supportive. We can tell now if someone's having a bad day. It's just a question of saying, "Are you all right? Is it going okay? Are you fine?"
Laura, there's two huge emerging trends happening right now, almost at the same time, and you guys see it more than we do in the United States in some ways. So one of them, it's in both countries, is tech and AI, and then the other one is private capital in professional service firms, and you're seeing it a lot in law firms in Europe and the UK. I'd love to hear your perspective and how you guys are thinking about this or approaching this.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Chris. There's a lot of chat in the market about PE investment in law firms, and all of a sudden we seem to have become flavour of the day for investment professional services firm. And of course, it is interesting and it's exciting to see that level of interest and activity. I mean, I think it's probably fair to say there's not a huge amount actually happening yet. We've obviously had a few transactions, not least the DWF Inflection one, which is probably one of the biggest. So I think it's still sort of in the foothills of what it might become. But I think from a law firm perspective, and certainly as we look at the market, we'd want to be very clear about why we would be doing this and what would we be gaining from it. We need to go in with absolute clarity and also understand what the consequences are of such a move. Equally, from a PE perspective, they've got to be sure about what they're getting into. We have 500 partners in our business, and that's 500 owners of the business. So, and of course, the law firm is only as good as the partners in the law firm, and they're all very much specialists and key to client relationships in their own right. So again, PE coming in, they need to be clear about how they're going to get out again, and I think these are things that are on our minds just now in terms of whether this would be the right thing now or in the future for us. So I think it's a really interesting time. You asked about AI and tech, and of course, there's a huge amount of investment going into that, and not least in our firm too. It's a very exciting time, I think, for the legal sector because of that. So yeah, we are absolutely close to what's happening and very excited about where that can take us with our clients.
If you were indeed living in the future and the board kind of ratified, Laura, we'll go down the private equity route. Did you ever kind of have discussions like what would you do with the money? I mean, this is the perennial challenge. Like in an organization such, as large as you are, like what would you do?
Yeah, and we've never, just to be clear, Howard, in terms of where we are, we've not got into serious discussions. But of course, it's the right thing to do to muse about what it would be. I think the obvious thing to say would be investment in technology would be the obvious thing that you would potentially use the funds for. But there are a whole host of things that could fall under that umbrella too.
Yeah, Laura. So you've had a unique perspective, being inside of one firm with amazing amounts of growth from merger. Um, would you speak or share advice to men or women, whether in the United States or in the UK and Europe globally, who are being faced with the opportunity to lead? What advice would you give them in a large law firm?
Yeah, I think that in many ways it's a daunting prospect, obviously, and it's not something that I entered into lightly. I mean, I did give it a lot of serious thought and consideration. But I think what I would say is, with the right leadership team around you, you're not alone, and I think that's really important. I think understand that you might be the front face, but you've, with a great team around you, that's absolutely critical. So I would say, yeah, put your brave boots on and take that step, because it's a hugely rewarding and role, and it's a great privilege to be in this position and to be able to meet people from countries frankly on the opposite side of the world. In my case, it's amazing.
And of all the things that are in your inbox, is there one thing that kind of really keeps you up at night?
Oh, so I think I've got a small list, if I'm honest, Howard. But let me just there's the usual things like some kind of cyber attack or whatever that might be. But actually, I think some of the geopolitical issues that are going on just now, that has to be right at the top, really, of that. And we have, for example, offices in Qatar, where the recent events there, and I'm talking to the head of our office in Qatar, who had been standing on our balcony and watching things happening in the sky. So those are the absolute, I mean, that's at the most extreme end, I would say, but just fallout from a whole host of different things going on right across the globe. I'm not alighting in any one particular area, but I think that's probably what's most on my mind, really, as I look to the future and look to what we're going to do from an investment perspective. we absolutely have to be alert to the geopolitical issues and of course the economic issues that might flow from that. So that's those are the things top of my tree, I think.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Laura, not to keep on asking for advice, but you've have a lot of experience here. What advice would you give yourself if you were to do it all over again if you went back to a law firm? Would you change anything?
Um, I think probably um, know that that it is possible. I think I think I think maybe take a bit more of a maybe a more calming approach, really, in terms of, I think I've always been one to, even in my litigation world, I always wanted to do the next best case. I rarely took the opportunity to celebrate the fantastic results. I'd no sooner put the books down on one case and I was like, where's the next one? Let's keep going. I probably would just take a bit of a slower pace with that, I think, if I were doing it again.
Are you able to do that now, or is that something that you do now that you find? No.
No, I mean, that comes with the territory, right? So I can't complain
Mhm.
about that at all. I mean, it's just part of the job, you just, and of course, being a firm with our reach across jurisdictions, it means that there's no sort of every time zone. We're getting emails all the time. So, but that look, that's okay. This is a termed role, and I knew when I went into the job it was going to be like that. So, I'm embracing it. It's fine.
Because of the geopolitical kind of considerations that are part of the your job and all obviously affecting the partnership, how are you communicating amongst your partners, and how often do you guys get together to really kind of build the consensus required to kind of govern not only effectively, but just to kind of get everyone on the same page strategically in the business?
Yeah, that's a great point, Howard. I mean, trying to harness 500 partners and have everyone pointing the same direction is no mean feat at all. Um, and communication is always. I mean, I would love to meet the person who says we've got communication absolutely on the nose in our firm because we get complaints that we communicate too much, and then we get complaints we don't communicate enough. And I just, well, where's that sweet spot? I'd really love to know. On something as important as some of the geopolitical issues, especially affecting some of our colleagues, yeah, absolutely. We sent an email to not just partners, actually, to the wider firm, just to give them reassurance our colleagues were safe and well, and and they're very grateful to the numerous reach outs that people had made to them to make sure they're okay. So we will do that. But in terms of bringing our partners together, we have a partners conference every 2 years. That's an in-person event. The alternate years, we bring our practice groups together in sort of quick sequence. So we have one practice group on the Monday, the next on the Tuesday, and then they stay overnight and have dinner on the Monday night, then into Tuesday. So we do that each alternate year. So we have practice group sessions, which we just had one in November in Amsterdam, which was fabulous. That was wonderful. And then also every quarter we have what we call invested calls, where we create the senior leadership team. So senior partner, managing partner, CFO, head of clients and markets, and our CPO, we put together a brief report on what's been happening in the firm, and we send that out to partners, and then we have calls. So we have Teams calls where we have two. We have one very early in the morning at UK time, one a bit later in the morning, and partners can just dial in and ask questions of the senior leadership team at that point on any topic at all. So I mean, we use that forum as well to perhaps send out some messages. We want that call as well, just to say, look, we haven't got it in the document, but just a couple of things to add to it if we want to add something to it. So, and there's normally a good dialogue in these calls. They work well. People can submit questions ahead of time, or they can just raise their hand, or type in the chat box. So it's quite good. Perhaps I'm saying it from one side of the table, but I think partners like it. We do get high numbers of people joining, so I think it does seem to work.
Yeah, incredibly important communication. Laura, are you having fun?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am. I mean, don't get me wrong, Chris. I'd be lying if I said that every day was, a bed of roses. There are some days where I just think, oh, goodness me, what next? And there's a part of me that I do wish I'd started writing a book, because some of the things that cross my desk, which I'm not going to tell you about now, sorry to disappoint you, but some things that cross my desk just I don't, kind of make my eyebrows raise a little bit. But but for the most part, it's a fantastic job, and I've met some amazing people, and I'm not just talking about partners in the firm. I mean, right through the firm, we've got incredible people, whether they're legal technicians, whether they're PAs, whatever they might be, office managers in different locations. It's great to hear from them and to hear their perspective on things.
How many days are you on the road, basically?
It does vary. I mean, I'm quite a bit. I mean, I do try to hit the offices as much as I can. I mean, with 29 offices, it's not always practical, obviously. Most of my time is spent in our London office, which is our headquarters, as you would expect. But we've in the past month or so, I've been to Paris, I've been to Germany. I've been to Scotland. So yeah, but before that, South Africa, Dubai, Qatar, Riyadh. I did manage to do in 1 week, 2 months ago, I think, Qatar, Riyadh, and Dubai. I wouldn't recommend that. That didn't involve a huge amount of sleep between flights, but it was great to be able to fit that in. So that was good.
Your presence in China, I just think, is tremendous because where many U.S. law firms are all shuttering their doors, it sounds like you guys are expanding. Um,
Yeah.
can you shed light to us on China? I mean, as much as you're allowed to, and what your perspective is there, because it seems like there's a lot of mixed opinion even here in the United States.
So our offices in China are really important, and as I said earlier, we've had them for a significant number of years. Our focus in China has very much historically been on the infrastructure and to a lesser extent energy sectors, and our work from China is outbound work, largely outbound work. So as our clients, our particularly Chinese contractors, have been expanding into the Middle East, into Africa, we've supported them in that. So that's historically what our practices looked like in China. But we've now come to realise that actually we've got a lot of skills that we can develop. And Shenzhen, of course, being a massive tech hub, and we've got some fantastic skills in that space that we can also bring to that infrastructure and energy perspective. So that's the reason for Shenzhen, is to develop those skills and further relationships really in that hub. Of course, it's very close to Hong Kong too, so it works very well in terms of our overall presence in China.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Laura, kind of wrapping up things, would you finish this sentence for me? The future is bright because.
I think the future is bright because we are just at a critical point in the legal sector right now where we've got that pivot towards AI and tech. And what excites me about the future is the fact that we've got these fantastic um, sort of expertise wise owls, if you like, these sort of senior partners who've seen it all before and who have this sort of real strategic insight. But we've also got the sort of junior lawyers coming through who are already tech savvy and ready and wired to go. And the combination of the two, I think, is just phenomenal. The excitement that gives me, I can't really put into words, because I think if we get that right, and it does involve having the right people in the room at a very level playing field table, I think it could be, a really fantastic thing for the legal sector. So that's what gets me excited about the future.
I love that perspective. Laura, how can people find you, follow you on social media?
I think LinkedIn's probably the best route for that.
Excellent. And Laura, it's been an honor and a pleasure today. Thank you for your time.
So,
Oh, thank
Laura, Chris and I are very happy that you did not choose dentistry, otherwise our paths wouldn't have crossed. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Howard, and thank you, Chris. It's been a joy to speak to you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.